The Armata tank has become a real challenge for Nato tank builders. Design officers of Western countries were discouraged by the tanks passing into service, which has the most advanced features in terms of mobility, protection and firepower. That is why tank builders have had to adjust their current projects on future tanks and prepare them for a possible confrontation with the Armata on the battlefield. But are the efforts being made to catch up to the Russian engineers successful? At the Euro-Satori exhibition, which was held in June in France, German weapons company Rheinmetall presented a promising sample of a 130mm gun, L-51, which is aimed at combating modern armored vehicles, including Russian main battle tanks MBT T-14 and the Armata. The latest modifications to the T-90 were also presented. Manufacturers are affirming that the gun will be between 10% and 50% more efficient than the previous model of the 120mm gun, the L-55, which is widely used in the army. However, the manufacturer has not reported on the method of estimation for the effectiveness of the gun. Despite the increase in the firepower of the gun, its weight remains almost the same. The shutter with a vertical locking mechanism weighs about 3 tons and the trunk has a weight of 1,400 kilograms. This result is achieved through the use of high-tech materials and optimal design that allows for the new gun to be used on existing tanks of the latest modifications, such as the German Leopard 2A7. This means that the weapon can be distributed widely. It can also be installed on the projecting German-French tank, the MGCS, which is anticipated to be placed into service after 2030. To increase the armor penetration for the gun, new, longer and heavier projectiles were developed. Armor-piercing fin-stabilized discarding sabot APF SDS, as were separable trays and high-explosive air-bursting munitions HEABM. Despite the manufacturer's declaration of the significant increase in the firepower of the guns, experts have expressed doubts. The sample that was presented is designed for manual loading, and experts have confirmed that the rapidity of fire cannot exceed more than 6 to 8 rounds per minute. The T-14 has an auto-loader which provides for the rapidity of fire of about 10 to 12 rounds per minute. Regarding the increased efficiency of the gun's shot, as claimed by Rheinmetall, it must be noted that the round's DM63 for the previous gun model, the RH-120 L-55, which is installed on the tank Leopard 2, has a penetration of up to 800mm of homogeneous armor. Therefore, an efficiency of 10% in the L-51 model yields 880mm. In comparison, Armata's 125mm gun, the 2A82-1M, provides armor penetration of between 850mm and 1000mm. The 152mm gun, the 2A83, which has been tested in the 90s and into the century, will be installed on Russian tanks in the future. Hit 1, 24mm of homogeneous armor. It is known that field tests of the German guns were not carried out and that the gun has not been set on a real tank. Therefore, it is hardly possible that a 50% improvement in the performance of the German gun can be said to be achieved. The Russian tank crew is set in a separate capsule protected by a modern, multi-layer counter-heat protection effect armor. In addition, a dynamic Armata Malachit protection system and the active protection system Afghanit provide protection against all existing anti-tank weapons. Finally, according to Armata's developers, the mounted machine gun, which obtains data from the Active Electronically Scanned Array AESA radar, is able to protect the tank by knocking the flight of anti-tank missiles and changing the trajectory of the rounds or damaging cumulative jets. It appears doubtful whether the new German gun can defeat such a fortress at this stage, even with a possible 50% increase in its efficiency. Of course, much depends on the situation awareness systems used, the ammunition, fire correction systems and electronic warfare. But it will take years or decades to develop such a combat complex and corresponding strategy of its application. It should be kept in mind that Russian engineers will continue to design more sophisticated armaments. Since it is possible to now assert that the Armata is currently the most powerful and protected main battle tank in the world, Rheinmetall's affirmations that the gun can defeat the T-14 are seen as a marketing ploy in an attempt to attract the attention of potential customers to the objective problem of the need to combat the modern Russian tank. The arms concern also raises the question of the expansion of financing for such developments. Clearly the Western, or at least the European tank building industry is behind the Russian industry. Nevertheless, the US military technologies could pose a significant threat to Armata. as demonstrated by the Future Combat Systems (FCS) and familiar doctrines. US military strategists are betting on the interaction of unmanned and mixed combat systems operating in 3 dimensions: ground, air, and space. According to this approach, the target should be defeated from the zone located beyond the line of sight of the enemy. For example, a promising lightly armored 20-ton tank, the XM-1202 Project FCM, equipped with a 120mm gun XM-360, was supposed to launch the mid-range munitions MIMKE or MIMCE to a distance of 12 kilometers and targeted with drones, Class 1 T-Hawk or 4-Fire Scout. It is therefore more likely that in the coming years we will see more Armata-orientated systems of weapons and even so-called Armata killers.